Ian, what's happening, brother?
Not much, man. Happy
Appreciate
to
you
be here.
coming on, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thank you, man. Uh, Ian, you're a media personality to say the least. I was poking around through a lot of your stuff, and you've got some really cool stuff and real interesting stuff out there. But why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are for those who don't know, and a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are right now?
Yeah, my name's Ian Wendt. I am the owner of official Patriot gear. I'm also, I guess, like you said, media personality. My Instagram is pretty much where most people know me from. Um, so yeah, I built a patriotic apparel brand, and you know, built a community around the values that make this country what it is, and but you know what real patriotism is, not the polarizing one way or the other kind of stuff that we see nowadays. And I share a lot of messages around that on my platforms. And father of two, husband, happily married to love of my life. We're going on 10 years now.
Mm.
Um, yeah, man. Just been in business and sales pretty much my entire life. I was in door to door sales for like 6 years, and then I managed a team, and then I built their training and basically built their training platform from the ground up. Ran all that, all the creation, implementation, and then I took over their marketing. So by the time I was done with that, I basically was in charge of all the training and all the marketing for the company itself. And yeah, then 2020 hit, and I started talking a lot of crap online, and things changed.
So you were a pretty successful sales professional. What was it like actually deciding, hey, I'm going to leave this thing and I'm going to go do this like kind of crazy thing. I'm going to start an apparel brand. I mean, that's a difficult industry.
Yeah. First of all, I didn't know I was getting into the apparel brand. I mean, that wasn't really like I knew that I was going to build a business, but I didn't necessarily know that it was just going to be based on apparel.
Okay,
I was more going in on myself at the time,
got it.
and just going in on the fact that I was going to rely on my own ability to create whatever opportunity I needed to.
Hmm.
And, but I mean, it was, it was way different than that I would have expected it to be. Because, you know, I had a pretty decent, career. I had a really comfortable job. I made really, really good money. We definitely didn't want for anything, and you know, we traveled multiple times a year. I was set, and I was to the point too where I would have been set for a very long time.
Just
Um,
kind of reoccurring like clients and revenue and things like that.
no, it was literally just salary and the fact that I was
Oh,
adding so much value to the organization that I could pretty much guarantee that I was going to be there for, you know, however long I needed to be in whatever capacity I needed to be. But um, the yeah, the day that I left, um, I remember I remember it being completely different than what I would have expected. I would have expected to be very nervous, very like rattled and anxious because, you know, I am like literally leaving everything I know,
hmm,
and leaving such a comfortable spot to put myself up against the wall and have to literally rely on myself,
hmm.
and kind of, you know, eat what we kill. But it was the opposite. I felt peace. I knew I made the right decision, and I felt called to do what I was doing. And so I'll never forget. I left my job, and I went to Walmart because that's where my wife was, just right down the street. And I remember walking up to her in the aisle, and she asked me, she's like, "Why are you not more worried? Like, why do you look so calm right now?" Because I told her, I was like, I just left, and she's like, at first she thought I just meant I left the work for the day, and I was like, no, no, no,
Right.
I left. And she's like, okay, why are you not rattled? Like, why do you look so calm?
Hmm.
And I just told her, I said, because I feel like this is what we're supposed to do, and I know that it was the right move, and I'm at peace with it, and I know we're gonna be good, and we were.
Mm. So you didn't really have like, because I know you start the social thing, but did you have like any revenue at that point in time or
Oh yeah,
anything?
yeah, I did. I had created a pretty decent revenue stream through my social media, just with just with literally the first Patriot tee that I sold. At
I
the end
see.
of the day, this whole business started with one T-shirt, and like I
Mhm.
said, I wasn't planning on starting an apparel company. It it was a point in time when I decided to get really loud about what was going on, and I rallied a massive community online. My following grew exponentially in a very short amount of time,
Mm.
and I decided I didn't want to be the talking head and the political conspiracy theorists, whatever that everybody else is, and I didn't mind being that because that was part of my personality that I was finally able to show people that I hadn't shown people for a long time because it just wasn't necessary, to be quite frank, but now it was.
Mm.
But I also wanted to do something with the influence that I had gained because it was something I was trying to build for over 10 years. I mean, I'd been active on social media for 12 years at that point. Probably actually
Mm.
more like 15 years at that point. Instagram was
Jeez.
more like 10. And I had a pretty decent following. I had like 15,000 followers and that's not terrible, especially when it's completely organic, and in my world I was pretty well known. But yeah, when I started sharing, you know, my opinions about the world and about what was going on during the riots and COVID and all those different things, my following exploded. And all of a
Mm.
sudden, I realized that a lot more people believed what I believed, felt like I felt. But again, I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to just be the talking head that was posting content about this stuff and then that's all I was doing, right? I wanted to actually like do something that was worth having that influence. And so I got my community online to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for multiple businesses. We helped them. We saved their businesses from having to close their doors during the lockdowns.
Mm.
We raised money for veteran organizations, anti-child trafficking organizations. We helped families all across the nation within the community. And we were just doing a lot of amazing patriotic things. And I had already launched I had already talked about the Patriot tee, and I had already like kind of brought that to my community, but it hadn't gotten to the place where it was really what it is now, which is a symbol of all of that goodness and all of that goodwill and that charity. And when I realized that I had more of a community and something that was more than just a following on social media that was consuming content, people that were actually willing and able to like get up and be loud and everything,
Mm.
and make a difference. I also realized that they were all afraid to do that. They were afraid to be vocal about what they were doing because they didn't want to get canceled. They didn't want to lose their jobs, lose their family, or whatever. And so that's when I made that Patriot tee, and I said, instead of being vocal about it, just wear this, and
Mm.
it'll tell people exactly where you stand. And so that was a while back, and that took off. And as we helped those businesses and everything like that, that's really where the revenue started to come in for the shirt because it meant something more. And that's when I created Patriot Friday. And now, since then, since I don't know, September of 2020, August of 2020, every single Friday, people that have official Patriot gear will post pictures and videos and tag our company page and my page every Friday. And that's
Mm.
Patriot Friday. Um, and it's a symbol of what true patriotism really is, which is it's not a partisan or an exclusive term, even though that's what it's been made out to be.
Yeah.
The When I finally decided to make it a business, that's what the thought process was. It was this shirt and these people represent true patriotism because when we were raising money for these businesses that were going under or these families that needed help or whatever, not one time did any of these people ask me what color those people were, the business owners or the families or whoever we were helping. They just threw money and resources at these people without asking what color are they, what do they believe? Are they vaccinated? Are they wearing a mask? Are they Democrat? Are they Republican? Like nobody asked those questions because that's not patriotism. And
Mm.
that's when I realized what the message and the mission of my business was, which is to remind people that true patriotism is not you don't ask those questions. It's not partisan, it's not exclusive. And it's just about love of country and love of people and the willingness to get up and make a difference and defend it and serve.
Mm. I'm curious because you're so close to this. Why do you think that there is sort of that connection? It's the joke, like if somebody has an American flag outside of their house, you know who they're voting for. It's like why is that? What's your
Uh,
experience like been thinking about that thing? Because I'm sure you've thought about it a lot. When people go, "Oh, he's got a the Patriot hat on, he's probably a right wing nut. You're like, well, why is that association there?
There's a couple reasons, and it's the same reason. I would say there's a couple reasons. The first one is the media and the legacy media. The mainstream media, the talk shows, all of the organizations and corporations and media channels that disagree with the values of the right have done a really, really good job of demonizing the idea of being a patriot, the idea of loving your country, the idea of patriotism in general. And that's a very calculated thing. The fact is, these people want the ability to control the minds of Americans and to control their actions. And the best way to do that is by taking away any sense of pride or real sense of like belonging and patriotism to your own country in order to do that. Because if you have no real allegiance to your country or the people that are in it, then it's so much easier to be controlled and manipulated by ideologies that don't resonate and don't belong in America.
Yeah, and you're
Right?
less likely to say like, "Oh, I'm going to fight for this thing."
Yeah,
It's like,
you're not going to.
well, why
Yeah,
would I
you're
fight for this? It's like,
yeah.
I don't care about fighting for,
Yeah,
Zimbabwe. It's like that's not, I'm not going to do
exactly.
that.
Exactly. But on the flip side, there's also something to be said about the fact, and I've been very loud about this as well, that the right has cannibalized it. They have basically made it hard for people to be patriotic because of the stigmas that come with it, because of the actions of the people that say, oh, if you don't support Trump, or if you're not flying a MAGA flag, or if you're not, a gun-toting left Democrat hating American, then you're not a patriot. Like, that's bull.
Right.
But unfortunately, that narrative and that agenda has been spun by the right. So it's a combination of the left and the right both doing something to make this term such a polarizing term. On the right, you're only a patriot if you do certain things and if you support certain people. And on the left, if you consider yourself a patriot, then you're a domestic terrorist and you're, a danger to people around you because you want radical extremism in the country. And neither of those things are true. The truth is in the middle. And the majority of this country is in the middle, which is what was just proven with the past election, right? The majority of the people just want to be, successful. They want our country to be in a good place. They want to be able to afford their groceries. They want to be able to, they want to be able to take care of their fellow Americans, and they want to know that America's in a good place. And that in itself is patriotism. Patriotism is not the extreme on one side or the other, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think those are the two main reasons that the word patriot and the term patriotism has been such a polarizing, crazy term, quite frankly, and has been such a weird experience for a lot of people, including myself.
I'm sure you get kind of pushback from both sides.
I get more pushback from the right than I do the left.
I have heard that. It's always like,
Far more.
people eating their own. Why? They think that you're not like
I get
far enough
I get a
over.
lot of hate. I get a lot of hate because people accuse me of being a grifter. Because, heaven forbid I try to build a business that reminds people of patriotism, that obviously I must just be profiting off of, American patriotism, which that's not the case at all. And anybody that follows me knows that's the truth. I'm the farthest from that. But unfortunately, there's also a lot of people out there that are, and that make it really hard for people like me to have a case and say that I'm not, right? Which is why you always have to be willing to actually get out and serve and do things that continue to show people that you're not just about selling clothing, right?
Well, right. It sounded like you started with almost like a philanthropic mission out there.
No, that's exactly what it was, and that's what it's always been. We've always come back to that. That's one of our philanthropy and service are our biggest core values. We never take more than we give, and like I said, anybody that has followed me or followed the brand can attest to that. But the other thing is the other hate that I get is the age old, well, if you're in a patriotic apparel brand, then you have to be American made. So first of all, there's a couple fallacies in that. The first one is that the idea that patriotism is only American. Patriotism is not an American term. it's an everybody term. There are
Mm.
patriots in Canada. There are patriots in freaking Mexico. There are
I
patriots
did
in
see you sell
Italy.
the Canadian flag. I thought that was
Yeah, I mean, my
interesting.
wife is Canadian, and if we really want to talk about the reason why COVID ended so fast and why we got out of that, the convoy is the main reason why we were able to get out of COVID. Because if you look back at the timeline, from the time that the Canadians did that convoy, and the time that all the lockdowns and everything and all the crazy things about COVID started to be lifted, it was right after the convoy. So
Mm.
in reality, the Patriots in Canada are what really got us out of that mess in a lot of ways, and they're still paying for that,
I was
right?
gonna say a lot of them suffered mightily.
They did, but that's the thing. Patriotism is worldwide. It's a term that just once again means you love your country, you love your people, and you're willing to stand up and defend it verbally, physically, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, that's what patriotism is. So that's the first fallacy, is thinking that patriotism is an American thing, and so it has to be American made because otherwise you're just profiting off of whatever.
Well,
The
right.
next,
You're kind of connecting like patriotism and like nationalism, maybe like at the same time. You're like kind of maybe using those interchangeably, or maybe
yeah,
I don't know if there's another word there.
no, it is, and I'll get to that because that's the other thing. Is it's the other fallacy is the fact that you have all these people that are attacking people like me. I'm not the only one. They attack any business that isn't all American made, but does anything that's even remotely patriotic or Americana or whatever. I promise you, they're getting the same amount of hate. And what's so funny is the same people that are hating these companies for not having American made products are doing it from a Chinese cell phone or a Chinese.
I was gonna say, like, if you want someone to whatever manufacture, t-shirts, glass, hats in the United States,
Yeah.
just go do it. Like nobody's stopping you from
Well,
going out and making it your own thing.
yeah, and it's not only that; it's the fact that like they're so willing to go out and support other companies and other corporations that clearly are not American made. But as soon as you have a small business with somebody who claims to love their country,
Right.
and
Everybody's
and
got the Apple iPhone. Well, hold on a
oh,
minute. Where was that made?
right.
You know?
But to that point, like what people also don't understand and never will until they get in the game is to be an American made company right now is virtually impossible, especially for a small business.
Yeah.
The cost is astronomical.
Yeah.
The what you have to charge people in order to even make a dime off of something is insane.
And then
And to
people are
give,
screaming at you for your price gouging,
not
right?
only that, to give you perspective, we do have American made pieces. We do American made Patriot tees and American made products just in case there's people that want that option. What's hilarious is our highest return rate on a product is our American made t-shirt.
Mm.
Because people get it and they say, "Oh, this isn't super high quality. Can I just get the regular t-shirt again?"
Oh no.
And they're the same people that were belly aching and screaming and yelling at you because you didn't have an American made. So it's just hypocrisy. And to your point of the nationalism thing, that is what it is. It goes back to there's a very, very big difference between patriotism and nationalism.
Mm.
Patriotism is the love of one's country and the people in it and the willingness to defend it and want it to thrive and everything. But nationalism is all of that to the detriment of other countries.
Mm.
It's the idea that I use this all the time. People are probably sick and tired of hearing this if they listen to all my podcasts, but it's the best. It's the best like comparison I can give you. It's the difference between if my family is drowning in a river along with a bunch of other people, right? Patriotism is I'm gonna dive in, I'm gonna save them, I'm gonna bring them to shore, I'm gonna make sure they're safe, I'm gonna make sure they're fed, I'm gonna make sure they're in the best place possible, and then I'm gonna dive in and try to save somebody else. That's patriotism, right? That's true America first policy. America first is not America only, right?
Right.
Nationalism is America only. It's I dove in, I saved my family, F the rest of those people, let them
Yeah.
die.
You're kicking people on the way out.
That's not that's where things can go wrong. That's where you
Mhm.
overstep, that's where you take things too far. And that's exactly what you see with these people that are, oh, you have to be American made and you're not a patriot because you didn't serve in the military and you don't care about the country and you're just grifting and blah 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 blah. And I mean really it's a little bit of the nationalism thing, but it's also a lot of just jealousy and negativity and just
Yeah.
people want to be angry about something and so they latch on to whatever they can to, uh, whatever they can to basically the misery is company kind of thing, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, this has been like kind of my stance for the last handful of years is I just don't get super involved in politics just because I see so many people that they choose to get into it and then they choose to allow themselves to be like really upset by it. And I'm like, my man, you
Yeah.
chose to like, you know, read all these stories about what is Trump doing and what is Biden doing. I was like, you didn't have to read those stories. Like, they're not passing policies that are changing your life usually. Maybe like once a presidency, they'll make a policy. You're like, oh, actually, that did something for me, but it's pretty rare. So I'm like, you're just kind of going out of your way to get upset. And I think that some of these people who are like hyper like political, like it's not made in America, like you're a POS. It's like, okay, you kind of like the drama. Like, come on, like
No, they love
level
the
with me. You
it's
like
it's
it.
their it's the same thing as people during COVID and the masks, right? The people that were so outspoken about the masks, this is what I found. I'm not, this may not be for everybody. I'm not trying to make a sweeping generalization, but from what I observed and what I experienced, the people that were so like gung ho about the masks and calling other people out when they weren't wearing them or whatever, those people, the mask became their virtue. Like wearing a mask and protecting the elders and protecting your fellow Americans, like that became their virtue. And so they constantly push that virtue on other people. Because the reality is the most of the people that I knew that were doing that weren't really adding any other value to society. They were just kind of cogs in the wheel, and then all of a sudden they were given this ability to be, oh, now I can be the hero of the story. Now I can be the, this is my hill I'm going to die on kind of thing. It's the same thing with these people. It's become their virtue to call other people out and to act like they're, better than them because they are more American because they only buy American. And it's like, well, no, you don't, because your car is not American, and 90% of the stuff in your house isn't American, and the phone you're talking on isn't American. Like,
It's almost impossible, man.
it's just
Even
the it's
even
just
like,
hypocrisy from
USDA
people on both
meat
sides.
even like USDA meat, most of it's grown in, like, Argentina and Brazil, and I was shocked to hear that. I was like, "What?" I'll give you a story. So I have this glass product that I'm trying to manufacture. Kinda been working on it. It's, like, on the back burner. I got too many projects. I'm probably a lot like you. Um, but I looked at getting this manufactured in the United States. It'd be, like, equivalent to, like, like a glass Tupperware. The lowest quote that I got for it to be made by an American company was like $50,
Yeah,
50.
yeah.
Like,
It's
so, like, to
it,
make a margin on that, you gotta charge, like, $100 for a bowl. People are gonna, like, lose it. Like, what
yeah.
and it's unfortunate because 'cause you're just not gonna be able to be in business. S
Yeah, we looked at different products, and just to give you perspective, our hoodies, like on average, our hoodies are going to cost anywhere from like 15 to 25 bucks. If we're doing a lot of stuff on them, it's around 30 bucks, right? Like special edition hoodies are going to be like 30 bucks. So we're usually pricing our hoodies at like between 50 and 60 bucks. To do an American made hoodie, we would have to price our hoodies to make any money at all. You'd have to price your hoodies at about 90 to 95 bucks. Who's going to pay over close to $100 for a hoodie?
Well, and
I wouldn't.
as you said, you're like that's not like a guarantee that it's higher quality necessarily.
No, and on top, yeah, and on top of that, it's not quality. So
Mm.
so you have a worse quality product for way more money than it's worth, and it's just people say that like the other. It's funny because the other experience that I had another experience with this American made thing that just solidified exactly what I'm saying. There was a point in time where I came up with dog products. Right,
Mm.
we came up because it's like one out of every three people in America have a dog, so it was like, oh, that's a huge market. Let's make
Yep.
some collars and leashes and things like that. So we partnered with a local company in Idaho that was a small business. It was just a girl and her mom and like I think her sister, and they were making these awesome bandanas and dog leashes and collars and all kinds of stuff, right? But they were doing it by hand,
Right.
and it was all American made. And so it was crazy expensive. And the collar was like 60 bucks, and the bandana was like 50 bucks, and it was really expensive stuff. And we told everybody what it was going to be, and we showed them the prices, and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, drop it. Like we're so excited." We sold 3
Yeah.
products.
Yeah.
We dropped 4 different products, and we dropped dozens of each of those products. We sold 3 total orders.
Mhm.
And then when we asked them for some feedback, they were like, "Oh, it's just too expensive." And so what's funny is I gave them an option. I said, "Well, what about this?" And I showed them, wouldn't you believe it? It was a Chinese made bandana and a Chinese collar that we could have sourced. And I said, "Well, what if it was this price and it looked like this?" And it was like through the door, everybody was ready to buy it. They were super stoked about it. And it was like, that's the reality. People want to be outraged, but then when it comes time to put their money where their mouth is, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and look, man, we sell on Amazon. Like, we know that it's a price sensitive world.
Yeah.
Like, if you go to Amazon, look on page 1. I promise you the first, like, 10 or 15 products, they're gonna be some of the cheapest ones. Every once in a while, you get, like, a weird product, you're like, "Huh," like AG1. You search, like, greens, you'll get, like, a $90 product where everything else is 20, but that's
Mm-hmm.
pretty dang rare. Like, what rises to the top of Amazon is generally, like, the very low price products, sometimes even at the, expensive quality or sourcing or things like that. But people are smart. They make those trade-offs. They go, okay, well, this isn't the highest dose of vitamin C that I could buy, but it's $6 and the other one's 44. It's like, all right, forget it. I'll buy 2 of them, whatever.
Right.
Did
Yep.
you ever think like of other business ideas before you said like, okay, we're going to drop these t-shirts? Because if you hadn't done apparel before, and the problem that I always kind of see when people talk to us about apparel is you got to have small, medium, large, extra, extra large, and then you got to have blue, red, white, green. Before you know it, you're like, damn, this is like 20 SKUs for one product. Um, did you think about that a lot? Did you have other ideas? And like, how do you deal with that?
I did not have any of that in my mind when I sold the first t-shirt
You just
because
aped in. I love it.
I knew nothing about apparel. All I knew was that my buddy had the ability to print, fulfill, and ship out of Idaho, and that all I had to do was basically just get it to people.
Mm,
And so I had, like I said, I never planned on starting a clothing company. I fell into it.
yeah.
And all of that stuff I learned later. I learned as I went. I didn't even know what a SKU was when I dropped the first t-shirt. I had no idea. I was selling it off of Etsy. Like there was no plan whatsoever. And I figured all of that out as I went. Um, I will say that I think one of the biggest mistakes people make with clothing, if they have an apparel company, is they do try to have too many SKUs. Less is always more. We found that multiple times, and even now, I'm like, we have way too many SKUs. But the reality is, less is more. And when I first started, we had a T-shirt, a hoodie, and a hat, and they were one colorway, and that was it, right? The other thing is, when I first started, it was all pre-order. I mean,
Mm,
I didn't print anything before I sold it, so that was another thing that eventually I had to transition to. Okay, now we have to stock inventory because there's no way we can keep up with the demand, and if people are waiting 2.5 weeks for their stuff, it's not good.
yeah.
But at the beginning, we ran really, really lean. We ran everything pre-order. So I would post, we would sell hundreds of pieces, and then we would stop the sales
Go
and
make
say,
them.
we're going to make them, we're going to send them to you, post about them, build the hype, drop it again. And we did that over and over and over and over and over. And then, like I said, eventually it got to a point where we had to change the
Yeah.
strategy.
Yeah, that
But
totally works when you're like a small business and everybody kind of knows you're like a small business and they're like 2 weeks. We get it. We're helping Ian out. But once you're
exactly,
like, hey, this is a professional business, it can't take 3 weeks to ship. Like that's
no, then
a
you're
big
competing with
change.
Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, by the way, I looked up Jocko Willink's boots, his Origin
Oh,
boot,
Origin.
$2.99. So yeah,
Dude,
there
I
you go.
love Origin.
I
Hats
love it
off to
too,
them.
but $2.99 for a boot, I'm like,
So,
geez, like
look, hats off to them for being able to do it. But at the end of the day, they also have a lot of money.
yes, yes.
So, like,
I bet you
it's
the
apples to oranges, man.
Jocko Fuel is maybe fueling a little bit of that Origin boots. Yeah, I mean he's crushed it. But
But again,
there you
I
go.
not talking down about that. I love Origin. My hat is off to them being able to build an American business and having like it's incredible. I can't wait for the day that I'm able to meet Pete and shake his hand and say, dude, fantastic job. I mean, that is the goal. Like that is what I'm striving for. I ultimately want to be able to get to a point where we are making all of our own stuff in house and we have hundreds of employees and like that's the goal. So he set the bar and good for him. You know
Like,
what I mean?
yeah,
We're all trying, we're all aspiring to be that.
yeah. I think it's amazing too. I'd probably have a pair if they weren't $2.99. It's like, geez, I don't know, man. But so talk to me about like where the business is right now. It's kind of been this 5 year, almost seeming whirlwind. It sounds like where you started posting. You kind of hit this COVID wave when a lot of people were feeling these things that you were kind of tapping into.
Yeah.
Business starts to fly. I mean, what's the last 5 years been like for you guys?
Well, it's actually, I mean, has it been 5 years?
Yeah, 2020, man. Actually,
Technically,
2019 technically is when COVID started, right? So,
no, so well, the business started in May of 2021.
okay,
So technically it's been 4 years, right?
okay. Somewhere in
Yeah.
that radius.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, it's still a small business, man. We had a little bit, I always tell people I had a little bit of the opposite of what normal small businesses, startups would do. Normally startups and small businesses don't have the rocket ship at the beginning, right? It's that slow build and then they hit the rocket ship.
Yeah.
Mine was the rocket ship out of the gate. And then once that rocket started to slow down, then
Mm,
and by the way, the rocket slowed down because in 2020, at the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, I got hit with censorship.
yeah, I was
So
gonna ask how that's affected you.
yeah, so our first year we did over 1 million sales, and that was only through my Instagram channel. That was literally organic through my Instagram channel because I would post, and every story was getting 40,000 views per story. I
Mm,
was getting 9 million impressions a week, and I
jeez,
had 70,000 less followers than I have now,
that's crazy.
or even less than that now. Um, it was insane. The engagement was unreal, and so that's why I was able to build it so fast, and that's why I was able to cultivate that community so fast. But
What did
then
content look like at that point in time? Like as you were getting that, like just like
it was the same.
huge.
It was the same stuff. It was the same stuff as right now. Um, just I was posting a lot of conspiracy theories. I
I
was I
did
was
see
making
that.
I
Yeah.
was making my mini films. I was ranting a lot online, and then I was sharing everything I could about my family and my business. It's just the same stuff that I've always done. Just basically my life, open
Mm,
door to my life. Um, and then, like I said, we were also the biggest thing that was really, really growing that community was all the stuff we were doing with the businesses to help them and to document that
I
and to
got
go
you.
out in the communities and do good. But anyway, in end of 2021, beginning of 2022, I got hit with shadow ban.
Mm,
My account got deactivated for like a week and a half or something like that. Got that back online, luckily. But my account never recovered from the shadow ban and the censorship they put on it. They hit me with multiple strikes over and over and over. I haven't been able to go live on Instagram for over 2 years.
mm.
But basically, my engagement went from 40,000 views per story to this day. I'm lucky if I hit 5,
Whoa.
and over I have over 100,000 more followers now than I did before. And then my like impressions, maybe 5 to 8 million every 30 days, which is nothing compared to what it used to be. Again, with way less followers, right?
Mm.
My account was just absolutely slammed, and so it came to a point where I had to pivot, and I had to say, okay, we don't have what we used to have. And so what do we do now? And that's when we started getting into events. That's when I built out the ambassador program. That's when we got into physical locations. And that's when we just really started to do everything we could to get the word out there.
What do you think was the straw that broke the camel's back with the ban, or at least the temporary restriction? But then now it sounds like it's never gone back.
What got me banned?
Yeah, what do you think happened?
I know what happened. I shared a video from Chelsea Handler um, when those celebrities were making videos about voting naked, and they were literally all naked in the videos, and they were like disgustingly flaunting their nakedness and talking about
I don't remember anything about this.
it was
This
this
sounds hilarious.
disgusting campaign. Anyway, long story short, she wasn't like fully naked. She was censored, right? But she was definitely naked. I shared that post one day and said, "This is disgusting. This is what these people are doing to promote voting." Like it was a random post to just say, "This is disgusting. This isn't it. This isn't America. This isn't what we should be promoting. Like celebrities are out of touch. Blah blah blah." Right.
Right.
To this day, That post is still up on her page. It hasn't been even touched. That's the post that got me shadow banned, censored, and destroyed my account
Hmm.
for sexual activity, nudity.
That's kind of odd that you're the problematic one in this equation.
And I've appealed it multiple times, and yeah.
It's just
So
like a black hole. Things go in, they never come back out.
yeah, and then a while later, I connected with somebody who was referred to me by another really good friend, really good success, like really successful business owner that was working with somebody. This guy was like an expert in ads because I was basically like, hey, we got to get ads started. Let's do some ad stuff. And this guy's like the top of the top. Like he has access to the best people at Meta, and he basically said, look, I want to help you because I see what you've gone through and I just want to help. I don't normally help businesses like yours because it's not, you're not doing nearly as much as these other ones that I'm working with, but like, I want to help. He said, the first thing I need to do is go to my rep, because apparently he had a rep in Meta that was like secretly conservative. And he was
Ah,
like, I'm going to ask them to do some investigation, figure out what's going on with your account, and see if we can't help you out. And I was like, all right, sick, let's do it. So 2 weeks later, um, man, I don't tell me if I'm going overboard with this one, but anyway, 2 weeks later, I get a message, and he's like, "Hey, man, my rep got back to me and said not to touch your account with a 10-foot pole." And I said, "Why?" Like the thing you need to understand is I really wasn't posting a lot of like what they would consider back then disinformation, even though right now we know that all that is bullcrap, right? All that's
mhm.
come out now as being absolutely the truth. But like even COVID, I definitely like skirted around COVID because quite frankly, I didn't know. I
Right.
mean, I knew a lot of what was going on was a bunch of bullcrap, but like there were other things that came out that I'm like, I don't know the truth about that, so I'm not going to say anything. Like I'm not going to speculate. And so I really didn't touch that very much. What I talked a lot about was unity, patriotism, government corruption, like that kind of stuff, right?
Mm.
And so and I also talked a lot about anti-child trafficking because I was involved in multiple organizations with that. And so I figured that that's what it was that was getting my account shadow banned, because that's what was getting a lot of other accounts shadow banned is the anti-child trafficking stuff.
Hmm.
Ironic, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, he came back and that's what I was expecting. But I was like, so what did they say? Like, what was it? Was it the stuff that I talked about with the anti-child trafficking? And he goes, no. And I said, so what is it? And he said anti-Semitism.
Oh.
And I was like, so first of all, at this point, I knew, I kind of had an idea of what anti-Semitism was, but I didn't really like know.
Right.
Like it was very
Well,
much just
this
like a
this would have been probably what, like 21, 22 kind of time
no.
frame?
This is 2023. This is the beginning of 23.
Okay.
And
So
I was like,
previous to the war in Israel and Gaza.
oh yeah, and previous to like October 7th and all that stuff, right? Anyway, so I was like, maybe it was the end of 22. I don't remember, but I can look it up and tell you later. But anyway, I was like anti. I had never in my life had I posted something even remotely anti-Semitic, and I was like, "What in the world are you talking about? Nothing in my account is anti-Semitic. Like, find one post."
Yeah.
And I was like, "What did they tell you flagged it? Like, what post said? What did they say was anti-Semitic? Like, show me a post." And he did. He brought up a post, and it was one that I posted. It was a black square with white text. It's something I do a lot, and all it said was, America bows only to God. That was it. There was nothing else about Jews, nothing about it, like nothing. That's all it said. It literally just said, America bows only to God. I still have it. It's still up, right? They said that was the post that justified the anti-Semitic label on my account, which basically put it in a graveyard. And to this
Yeah.
day, so here's the interesting thing. When that happened, flags like sirens went off, and I was like, okay, I don't know a lot about this subject, so let me dig in. And I did. And like a lot of other people, I realized, oh, yeah, that's the label they put on you when they just
Mhm.
want to completely shut you up and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we don't have to go into all that. I'm sure you don't want to, but point of the matter is I have dealt with a lot of censorship, a lot of shadow ban, a lot of negativity, and a lot of attacks, quite frankly. And I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people that have dealt with that. But what it's come down to is just you have to pivot. You have to you can't stop. You have to
Mhm.
keep going as hard as it is, and it's hard.
Yeah.
Um,
Is there still
but
an active effort to try to get it, like, unbanned, if you will, or is it just, like,
there's
pretty
nothing I
much
can.
just
I've
yeah.
tried multiple times. There's nothing I can do.
Mm,
At this point, I'm basically just building my account again
I got it.
organically myself. Like my engagement's way better than it has been, just because I've been doing a lot to build it back up, right?
The same
And
account or, like, a different account?
it's the same account.
Mm,
And what I was gonna say too was I've been blessed to have an awesome community that really supports me. So it's like a lot of those people, you know, have me on their favorites and they've joined my VIP channels and they make sure that they're getting my content. And so that's helped a lot.
mm,
But I think that there's a lot of people that can't say that, and I think it comes down to, like I said, the decision that I made in the very beginning of I don't want to just be a talking head. On social media, I think that you have two types of following. I think you have a supportive following and you have a consuming following. And there's a lot of people out there that just have the consuming following. And what I mean by that is they post content, their followers consume their content, and that's it. That's where it stops.
mm.
They're not engaging with their followers. They're not doing anything to really build any kind of trust or, you know, any kind of like relationship. They're not really showing their family life or anything like that. Like it's just polarizing, you know, uh, content that they're posting the next thing, and people consume it and then that's it, they move on. They have huge followings, right? But their actual support is not nearly what it is for other smaller accounts, because those people have done a good job of building a community that is more supportive. So they're not only consuming the content, but they're also supporting that person in whatever they're doing.
Mm.
And I think that that's far more valuable, even though in the long run it may not look like it's as lucrative, or there's not, you know, there's not as many followers or there's not as big of a community. At the end of the day, it's a lot more valuable because the community is full of people who are actually supporting you and are actually fighting with you.
How do you think about building one as opposed to the other?
What do you mean by that?
Well, clearly you've done a good job of building a following that actually does support. So, like, kind of, how do you think about that? What have you seen that accounts do that can build that support base versus accounts that maybe just like they get big, but it's like, hey, buy my coffee, and people are like, oh, I don't really care about buying your coffee
Yeah,
that much.
I mean, it's really simple. You're just honest and genuine. I mean,
Mm,
like if something happens that you disagree with, even though you may be going against everybody and everything, and you might be the unpopular opinion or whatever, you share it. And no matter what it is, you're constantly just being true to yourself and true to what you believe. I mean, I don't care who I offend. I don't
mm,
care if people don't agree with me. If I believe something, I share it. If
mm,
I think that something's wrong, I talk about it. I've been a Trump supporter for a long time, but at the end of the day, every time he does something that doesn't align with the principles and the values, because I don't vote on people based on the person, I vote on people based on the fact that it aligns best with my principles and my values. And so
mhm,
when those people betray that, I absolutely go after them.
mhm.
Whereas other people, they are so tribal and they're so bought into the person that they give them a pass on all the things that they do, and they make excuses for, oh well, it's because of this, right? This is happening because, you know, just
Right,
trust
right.
that it's going to work. And it's like that's not it. So
Yeah, that's the most
number one,
embarrassing when people do that. They're like, "No,
yeah,
that wasn't a big deal." You're like, "Come on,
it's like
let's be
it kind
real
of was.
here." Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you true to yourself and you're true to the message, and then the other thing is you're open. I mean, my social media is an open door to my world. When my number one goal, and I feel like I've done a good job of this, and I guess this is probably the answer that you're looking for. You want people to, when they meet you in person, to say, "I feel like I already know you."
Mm,
And when they meet you in person, it's not a different person. It's you. And hopefully at some point you've actually interacted with that person, because you also make it a point to respond to comments and to
Mm,
respond to DMs and to be more open, right? A lot of the people you're talking about that just post and then huck their merch at people, they're not actually engaging with anybody. They're
mhm.
just posting and then selling and then posting and then selling. And of course people fall for it, but eventually that runs out. I think eventually people figure it out, and it doesn't have the longevity um, that building a supporting community does.
Yeah, it sounds like you're also talking about avoiding audience capture. That like if you start getting hits because you talk about Trump and you say Trump did this thing and it was great, and your audience is like, yeah, you don't just like want to be like, oh, I need to post more of that and more of that and more of that and more of that. And then like you said, before you know it, you're like, oh shoot, that's all I post is like pro
No,
Trump
that's
stuff. And then
I
you're
think
not
that's
actually serious. Yeah.
no, that's just content farming. I think content farming is probably one of the biggest, like, most hypocritical things you can do,
Mm.
and it's one of the biggest issues within, especially within the conservative movement. I mean, there's so many people out there that are just, all they're doing is content farming.
No, what do you define that for me?
It's exactly what you just said. It's oh, this thing just happened, post it, because we know it's going to get a ton of engagement. We know that it's going to rile up the base. It's not going to do anything to unite people. It's not going to do anything to actually make this country better. It's not going to do anything to move the needle when it comes to the principles and the values that we all hold dear, or we at least pretend like we hold dear. It's just going to create a lot of engagement and therefore boost my platform and give me the ability to sell something later.
Mm.
That's content farming. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that do it. And whether it's for selling merch or it's to get the position, or move up the ladder or get the news anchor spot or whatever it may be, there's a lot of people that do that.
So Tim Walz says something and you go, former VP Walz says ludicrous statement, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's them being no different than the mainstream media and the way that they just post inflammatory stuff to get people riled up. That's it's no difference. That's why I say it's the most hypocritical thing ever, because supposedly these people are all about transparency and not being corrupt like the mainstream media and all this other stuff, and it's like you're doing the exact same thing. When you post something that doesn't really have any substance behind it and it's only meant to rile your base up, like, what are you doing? How are you helping anything?
Yeah. Then you're kind of just back to like opinion, like
Yeah.
opinion journalism.
Now,
Where
now, don't get me wrong. There are times where there's something you're going to post that's going to rile people up. I mean, there's a lot of things that I post that rile people up, but that's not the goal. The difference is, what is your goal in posting? Is your goal to rile people up, or is your goal to teach and spread truth and hopefully influence people to make better decisions and to, actually do something good for their fellow Americans in the country, and or their country and their fellow people or whatever, right?
mm,
It's the intention behind it.
yeah, and that's tough. That's a tough place to be because you want your content to land. Of course, you don't want to just like do all this work to post this content and then nobody listens. You're like, well, shit. What do I have to say that resonates? It's tough to stay authentic to
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, but at the same time, like, I think that's the wrong mindset. I think the wrong mindset is thinking, I want this content to land. The right mindset is, if it means something to people, it's gonna land. And if it doesn't, then it didn't land.
Mm,
But you just keep going and you
mm,
just keep posting. Like, the posts that I make about my family or, business or whatever, they get far less engagement than the posts that I make about politics or the world or whatever, right?
yeah,
Far less. I mean,
yeah.
it's like night and day difference. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop posting that stuff, because that stuff is really important and that stuff actually makes a difference in people's lives in a big way. I mean, the politics and the world stuff does too, but like, the people that appreciate the posts about my family, about my business, things like that, I'm not going to forget about those people just because this is getting me more engagement. Like, that to me is when you sell out and you become a content farmer.
Mm, interesting. How do you think about like both your personal brand and your business's brand? Because I've seen you kind of talk about that a lot. Is like building that brand and that brand identity. I mean, how did you go about doing that? Because it seems like, not to say that you sort of like found this thing, but it sort of just all came together for you?
Yeah, I mean, I am my business brand. Like my personal brand is what fuels the business brand.
Mm,
Um, I'm definitely the face of my brand, and I think that there's been times where I thought maybe I shouldn't be, and like, do I need to kind of get to the point where I'm not? And I think that what I've come to terms with is that the brands that really have legs these days are the ones that are fueled by a person, because people want to follow people, not businesses, not brands. They follow the people behind it. So my what I did back in 2020 and the actions that I took and the community that I built and all the things that we did together ultimately led to being able to have official Patriot gear. But official Patriot gear is my business and is based off of what I believe is true and what I'm constantly putting out there. And then I'm a literal billboard for it, right?
mm.
I don't think you separate the two. I think the people that try to separate the two are off. I mean,
I
it's
I think
yeah,
those people are thinking about selling the company. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that I see is people go, "Well, if I want to sell this company and I'm, the primary revenue driver because people like me and buy from me because of that," like Nick Bear. I don't know if you know Nick Bear and Bear Performance Nutrition.
I
Big
don't.
big brand, but I mean, he's got these enormous. I mean, there's tons of YouTube influencers out there with similar things. Like he's got this enormous influencer kind of reach, and I think people buy it because of him. I think that companies like that, they're trying to separate those two things to go, I want this company to have value on its own aside from this person. If this person leaves, dies, quits, departs, we still have like followers of the brand, which is tough.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I would also say though that I think that what that comes down to is when a brand is built on a message, right? Like more of a message and principles. Typically, I've found that it's built on it's basically built on a person, because that person and their values and their principles and their message is what becomes the brand, right?
Yeah.
I think when you talk about brands that are mainly trying to sell and not necessarily like tied to any person, I would argue that I think those brands are probably not built on those things, and it's more really just about the product, the quality of the product or the problem that it's solving. And that's fine. There's a place for there's a place for both. There's a
Hmm.
place for businesses that solve problems and have an amazing product, and there's places for businesses that are completely built on a mission and a message, and people buy the product because they're bought into the mission and the message and the person behind it. There's also the businesses that are a combination of both, right? But I think you're right. I think it just comes down to what is your ultimate goal. And my goal is not to sell the business. My goal is to build something that is um, that means something to people, especially my family and the people closest to me, for generations.
Yeah. Is this a thing that you hope maybe your kids would be interested in doing?
Yeah, for sure.
I love it when I hear that from people. We got a
Yeah, I always tell people I'm not building a merch brand. I'm building a brand.
mm, well, I think it makes it so much easier to make like good sound business decisions when you have like a 10, 20, 30, 50-year horizon that you're looking at. Because we do business with a couple of brands that fall into that like CPG startup. We're going to build this thing and sell. And then we have at least two or three brands that are 100-year-old brands. And like they don't get flustered at a down month. They're like, it happens. We're a 125-year-old company. Like down months happen. Like we're not worried about like a down February. Like we're like, how do we make 2025 a year that helps propel us for the next 10 years, that helps propel this business to generation 10? We got some businesses on fifth generation. It's crazy. So they're like, how do we get this to generation 10? When you can
Yeah.
think in those time horizons, oh my gosh, you just make so much better decisions.
Yeah, I would also say that, I mean, no matter what, I think your decisions are going to be hard as a business owner. But to your point, you make decisions based on what's best for the brand and not what's best for the present situation. Like,
Hmm.
I always use this example because I think it's a perfect one. Is the message of our brand is patriotism's not partisan, right? It's not a political. I'm not selling political merch. I'm not trying to create a political merch company. And so there was a point, if you remember, when the whole Let's Go Brandon FJB thing was like huge. And
Yeah.
I have,
Oh, yeah. That could have been a quick money grab, right?
well, look, I have friends that did. And I'm not saying that what they did was wrong. It's just a different vision, right? But I have friends that had companies that threw that on a black T-shirt and made millions.
Mm.
And could I have done that? I absolutely could have. Did I think about doing it? I absolutely did, because it's a message that I definitely agreed with at the time, and still agree with. But I didn't. I made the decision not to, even though I knew it could have brought in a ton of revenue. I decided not to because I knew that it went against the brand and the longevity that I was trying to that I'm trying to create with Official Patriot Gear,
Mm.
and I had to be true to that. And there's been multiple times where I've made decisions like that as well, and that's, I wouldn't say that it's like, I mean, it's still hard. It's still a really hard decision to make, and you still take a hit, big one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think it's a matter of looking to the future rather than just focusing on the quick, low-hanging fruit in the present.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if you look 10 years out from now, that sale of those T-shirts might not have mattered, but you go, well, that kind of changed our business a little bit. That kind of changed like our message, and it kind of made us, not this.
Yeah, you become something you're not. You become something you never wanted to be.
Exactly. And yeah, I know a lot of brands like that. And it's a position of privilege to be able to make those decisions, right? Like some businesses are just like, we need to put out a product that sells, like we have to. So that's a fortunate thing that you're there and we're here doing that in a similar way. But yeah, it's a tough thing for a business owner. So
Yeah.
so where do you see the future of the company going? You seemingly doing awesome stuff. Where do you see the next handful of years, and what do you hope comes about?
Dude, I mean, we're just still building. I want to be really clear and transparent too. Like, you said that we're in a place where we can make decisions like that and it doesn't affect us. That's not true. We are like any other small business, and we are definitely fighting like any other small business to get to the point where we are able to grow as much as we need to, and to employ, hundreds of people. And we've been blessed to be able to have the growth we have and to have the community we have, but we are definitely still in growth mode. And you talk to people that have really successful brands, and especially in the apparel company, in the apparel business, and they'll tell you it's every single time it's no less than 10 years. So we are very much still in the beginning stages, and I am not out here trying to tell everybody that we're some like crazy success story, because we're not. I mean, like I said, we have a really cool community, we have an awesome brand, and we're building something that's incredible, and people see that and they support it. But we're just like everybody else, man. We're fighting. We're fighting to find the right connections, to grow the right way, to find that little bit of luck along with the hard work. And that's, you asked me what I see in the future. That's what I see. I see a lot more hard work. I see making the right connections, meeting the right people, and hopefully getting that little bit of luck that goes along with the hard work, and hitting our stride and becoming the legacy brand and household name that I want to become. I want this to be much, much bigger than just, a clothing company. I want this to be the sponsor of major sports events. I want it to be a company that is able to have multiple nonprofits and make a major difference in the world, and people stand behind it because it means something to them.
Do you think that there'd ever be like ancillary things that you're doing, like media? I mean, you already are kind of doing media, but like media or like documentaries, kind of like almost not to say the Red Bull model, but like, you think about Red Bull and there's all this stuff that comes along with it. I'm just kind of
Yeah, no,
wondering.
for sure. I mean,
That's what it seems
for,
like works for apparel. I mean, look at Nike, look at like Gymshark and all
yeah,
those companies.
for sure. Eventually, that is something I would want to do. I mean, I just got back from Western North Carolina. Went down there a couple times to help with the disaster relief.
Mm,
I ended up raising like close to 200 grand on my Instagram,
it's
and then we
amazing.
went down and we gave it to a bunch of business owners. We documented it. We have videos and interviews and kind of documentary style thing on that. And that ultimately is what gives me real joy and real fulfillment. That's what this brand was built on. And hopefully, I aspire to one day being able to not walk away from the brand. I'll always be a part of this, but I want to do more of that. I
Hmm.
want to be able to get in the trenches and help people and serve them and raise money and see the changes in people's lives and embody what the brand's actually about. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely the direction that I see it going. So
I love it, man. Well, Ian, I really appreciate you taking some time to chat with us. Tell people where they can find you, and I know you're easy to find on Instagram, but what's the best place to connect with you and to get some
Yeah,
Patriot gear?
my Instagram's the easiest. It's iWenster, IWENDTSTER. And then my company Instagram is the official Patriot Gear. And then, of course, if you want to support me, my business, be a part of this brand that you've heard so much about now, and kind of just join this community, officialpatriotgear.com is where you can get some gear. And make sure you tag us on Friday. Post and tag us on Friday on Instagram or any social medias.
I love it. Awesome,
Yeah.
Ian. Thank you, man. I think what you're doing is important stuff.
All right. Thanks, bro.
Keep
Appreciate
it
you.
going, man.